TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, terror operatives of the Iranian proxy Hezbollah are surrendering in droves as Israel continues to deepen its operational achievements within Lebanon. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, following a Hezbollah attempt on his life, vows to persist fighting until victory is achieved. The G7 calls upon Iran to sever its malign support for its regional proxies. Israel is deepening its tactical gains on all of its separate fronts. Nevertheless, the cost of war is heavy to bear. Alongside a number of reported casualties in Lebanon and the Gaza Strip, Colonel Hassan Daksa, commander of the IDF 401st Armored Brigade, fell in combat.
During an encounter in northern Gaza in the Jabalia area, the commander of the 401st Brigade, Colonel Hassan Daksa, fell in combat. During the same incident, a battalion commander was seriously injured, and 2 additional officers were lightly injured. The commanders were in the field in tanks, exited to observe the area, and were struck by an explosive while outside the tank. Hassan was an outstanding officer and a humble warrior who served in various combat positions within the Armored Corps. He was previously awarded a Chief of the General Staff citation for his bravery during the Second Lebanon War, when he evaluated wounded soldiers under fire. On October 7th, he left his studies and arrived immediately to the fighting in the south and has fought ever since. He assumed command of the 401st Brigade about 4 months ago. He led the fighting in Tel al-Sultan in Rafah shortly after taking command, commanding the brigade's efforts in defeating a Hamas battalion and leading the encirclements of the area and the elimination of many terrorists, which most likely prevented Sinwar's escape before his elimination. He continued leading the brigade in the ongoing battle in Jabalia, where they remain engaged. Hassan led from the front and fell while leading his troops. Hassan, 41 years of age, left behind a wife and 3 children.
The IDF is currently intensifying its operational activity in the northern Gaza Strip, where Division 162 is focusing on dismembering futile attempts by Hamas to regroup in the Jabalia sector. Meanwhile, in parallel, on the northern front, the IDF is successfully outrooting Hezbollah from all Lebanese villages along the border with Israel. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, during a meeting with soldiers of the 98th Division, highlighted Israel's state of operational activities versus the Iranian proxy Hezbollah.
We are actually transitioning from a situation of defeating the enemy in all of the villages of contact to a state of destruction, blowing up the tunnels, blowing up the ammunition depots, dismantling Hezbollah. The result of this matter is very clear, and the places where Hezbollah waited and prepared itself in order to raid our border communities, regardless of whether it is Misgav or Margaliat, Manara or another place, in fact now IDF soldiers are present. Our goal is to completely clean this strip of territory so that people can return here and establish their lives properly. And I think this is a very significant thing. We are progressively completing the mission. We still have more to do. We are nearing completion. As was to be expected, the IDF is preparing for follow-on missions on the one hand, but first of all it is carrying out the operation properly.
Jerusalem's top defense official went on to amplify the rising number of Hezbollah terror operatives who are surrendering along the entirety of the contact line.
We have prisoners with us, and they tell us what is happening. What they tell us is that they are in great fear. They are afraid of what is happening because they understand that there is something here that they do not know how to deal with. Not in its power, not in the quality of the fighters, in precision, in determination. And this whole great formation that they called Hezbollah is gradually collapsing both in the contact lines and in the continuous blows we are striking them in Beirut, Baalbek, Nabatea, Tyre, Sidon, in all places. We are operating everywhere. The matters are simple. We said that we would return the residents of the north to their homes safely, and this is what we are doing. We hurt the enemy and wear him down in order to make this security possible.
While Defense Minister Yoav Gallant visited the 98th Division in southern Lebanon, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi held a situational assessment with Northern Command Commander Major General Ori Gordin and the field commanders of the 36th Division, during the course of which he highlighted the high casualty toll which Hezbollah is actively trying to hide.
We are very determined to strike Hezbollah as hard as possible, and look, we've taken out their entire senior command level. You are taking out their entire local command level here. The command is also working on what's in between, and this whole thing is shrinking. There are very significant damages here. A whole chain of command is being wiped out. Hezbollah is hiding its fatalities. They are hiding their dead commanders. We estimate that there are around 1,500 eliminated Hezbollah operatives, and we are reserved in our estimates. I assume there are more, and we don't know, from many strikes.
General Halevi also addressed the rising phenomena of Hezbollah terror operatives surrendering to the seemingly superior IDF forces.
These are very important achievements. The fact that they are surrendering says something about the moral situation. It says something about the level of combat, about their self-confidence. It says something about the quality you brought with you. They understand that this is it. There's nothing left to do, with their backs against the wall, and that's the next stage. And that's why I think the combat is very, very correct. It also sends the right message. I'll tell you something broader than this. I think that even Iran doesn't understand what's happening to Hezbollah here. This is its main arm that it built up, and this is a very important thing.
While Israel is making some significant progress in the fight versus the Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited Beirut, where she initially met with the commanding officers of Italy's military contingents subject to the UNIFIL mission, as well as the bilateral Italian-led Military Technical Committee for Lebanon.
I would have loved to come and see all the military. I realize that it would not have been easy, but I am also here to bring Italy's closeness, attention, solidarity, and gratitude for your work. My messages have been and will be very clear about the role of our military engaged in both UNIFIL and MIBIL in the multilateral mission. Please transfer to all the committed men and women my closeness and solidarity. I hope to visit them soon. Thank you very much.
Premier Meloni subsequently met with Lebanon's parliament speaker Nabih Berri and Prime Minister Najim Mikati, respectively, during the course of which she stressed Rome's aspiration to further bolster UNIFIL's mandate throughout southern Lebanon.
This is why I repeat that I consider targeting UNIFIL unacceptable, and I ask once again that all parties strive to ensure that all times the safety of each of these soldiers is guaranteed. This is also why I'm convinced that UNIFIL must be strengthened. Only by strengthening UNIFIL while maintaining its impartiality, we will be able to turn the page. I discussed all these topics with Prime Minister Mikati, and I agree with him on the need for a full and actual implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. This also means that south of the river Litani, there must be no other military presence than that of UNIFIL and the LAF.
While Prime Minister Meloni visited Beirut, a G7 defense ministerial was held in Naples, Italy, during the course of which the 7 Western-oriented counterparts, to include the US, Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Japan, and Canada, released a joint statement announcing the G7's unwavering support for the Lebanese armed forces.
It has emerged the importance of continuing to support the Lebanese armed forces in their essential and indispensable role for the protection, security, and stability of Lebanon in order to strengthen their capabilities, credibility, and legitimate authority. It is precisely in this sense that the Donors Conference, which as you know we are hoping for, will be held and has been endorsed by all the G7 countries, too.
Rome's top defense official also highlighted the G7's position vis-à-vis Iran, which is regarded as the chief instigator of instability in Lebanon in particular, and the entire region at large.
Iran has also been a topic of discussion, particularly because of its destabilizing role in the region. We condemn Iran's recent attacks on Israel and call on Tehran to cease all support for groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, which threaten the stability of the entire region.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, for his part, seized the opportunity to call upon Israel to scale back on some of the strikes it is taking, especially in and around Beirut.
I say the same thing that I said, about Gaza, and continue to say. The numbers of casualties civilian casualties have been far too high. We'd like to see, Israel scale back on some of the strikes that it's taking, especially in and around Beirut. And we'd like to see things transition to some sort of negotiation that would allow civilians on both sides of the border to return to their homes. And that's the point that I'll continue to make with Minister Gallant. And I think, yes, he does take on my input.
Secretary Austin's call on Israel to scale back on its strike was made merely one day after Hezbollah announced its intention to increase the scope of the attacks against Israel. Following the terror group's announcement, the Iranian proxy attempted to target Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by launching a couple of drones toward his private residence in Caesarea, with one apparently managing to penetrate Israel's aerial defenses. Nevertheless, thankfully, no injuries were reported. And while in a statement, Premier Netanyahu asserted that Iran and its proxies made a grave mistake, his staff released a filmed statement which showed the Israeli Prime Minister is determined as ever.
Prime Minister, how is it going?
Well, 2 days ago, we took out Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist mastermind whose goons beheaded our men, raped our women, burnt babies alive. We took him out, and we're continuing our battle with Iran's other terrorist proxies. We're going to win this war.
So will something deter you?
No.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you first and foremost to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Separately, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider supporting our programs with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.